Hey guys, welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I appreciate you guys checking out the video and hanging with me a little bit. And guys, I know there's so many dang YouTube channels and so many different bass fishing videos. It's hard to spend, you don't have all day long to watch videos. So thanks for tuning in to Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate that. Guys, today we have another jig fishing tutorial. What I want to do today, guys, is I want to give a seminar, sort of a little lesson on how to pick your jig colors and your jig trailers in terms of colors and the styles. Because when you're talking about jig fishing, you got different styles of trailers in terms of how bulky or how big they are. Some of them have curly legs, some of them have straight legs. Some of them are designed to do different things in correlation with like the jig size and the jig color that you have, and combining that stuff is really key to catching a lot of bass on jigs. And guys, I love jig fishing. I've got a system that works for me, and I'm going to share with you guys some of the secrets that I have sort of developed over the years on how I choose my jig trailer combinations as far as the styles and colors based upon the conditions. So this is going to be a very info-packed video that has taken me lots of years to really learn how to put together. So we're going to dig into that. Also, guys, a couple quick housekeeping tips before we get started. Just wanted to run by you. Guys, if you are looking for, if you like to use a bait caster and you don't like to use a spinning rod, Cast King has got this new Kestrel line. It is a Finesse bait system. In other words, they designed these Kestrel reels here to throw extremely light lures, like light line, 6 and 8 pound line, lures down to like a 1/16 of an ounce. I'll put the Cast King link in the description here. Just go to the reel section and look up the Kestrels. Super competitively priced, affordable, guys, built for stout, quality second to none. You guys will love them, along with all the other Cast King reels they got. You guys, there's not a better reel as far as a better made reel at the price than Cast King. They are absolutely the favorite ones I've ever used. And real quick, guys, Solar Bat has extended their sale all through the month of July, their 250th anniversary sale on my Signature Series glasses. You can get them at 50% off right now through the end of July. Half price. Use the promo code RandyB for free shipping and handling. You got 3 different lens colors to choose from depending upon the RB2s or 3s, with a bunch of different, or frame colors, a bunch of different lens colors, optical clarity, craftsmanship second to none on these Solar Bats. The company is owned by Dr. Gary Nesty, he has an optometry business, and he's also a big bass fisherman. So it's got the best of both worlds. So I'll put those links in the description of this video, so appreciate that. And thank you very much for putting up with the plugs there. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, we do a lot of stuff on the channel here, but you hear me talking about jigs and jerk baits a lot in the videos I do, because like I always say, jig fishing and jerk bait fishing is the 2 most difficult techniques to master in the sport. And the reason why they are is the amount of variables behind it. There's not any other lure category out there besides a jerkbait and a jig that has more variables to it. There's probably more variables to jig fishing than there are jerkbait fishing. Now, it's different because jerkbait fishing has a lot of variables in terms of how you work the bait and how you retrieve the bait, but jig fishing has got a lot in terms of colors and size and all that. So I'm going to go through with you guys, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite color combinations and the trailers I like to match with them. Sort of explain to you guys the situations I use them in. So I'm just going to sort of randomly go through here. Now, first of all, guys, there's 3 primary trailers that I use. I use the Zoom Big Salty Chunk, which is like the old pork frog. I use the Zoom Super Chunk, which is just a longer version of it, but it's still straight. And I use the Zoom Magnum Speed Craw that's got the curly tails on it. And also, guys, I'll link all this. I'll put all my Zoom trailers in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description, along with the link to my Blaukat Throwback jigs we're talking about. But those are the 3 primary ones. Now, how I determine whether I want to use a curly leg versus a straight tail is that there's a couple different things with that. Okay, one of the things you have to understand is when you use a curly tail trailer on a jig, the curly tail trailer is going to slow the fall of that jig because there's more drag to it. So if you put a super chunk on a 1/2 ounce jig and a curly tail like a Rage Craw or Speed Craw on a 1/2 ounce jig, the Speed Craw is going to make the jig fall considerably slower. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not. Really just depends on what the bass want. Now, the reason you want to decide, or how you decide between a curly tail versus a frog type trailer, Number one is experimentation. Sometimes there's no logical reason for it. Sometimes it's just what the bass prefer day in and day out. You can't like overanalyze it. It is what it is. In other situations, what I have found in my own fishing is if I'm fishing a more clear water situation, like if the water visibility when I'm jig fishing is over about 2.5 or 3 feet, a lot of times I'll use the curly leg trailer because the curly legs offer visual action to the fish. So when that jig's falling and those legs are flapping, sometimes that attracts the bass in that sense. Also, another thing I found out about curly leg trailers is they work a little bit better if you're flipping vegetation. So if you're flipping hydrilla, milfoil, matted vegetation, reeds or cattails, for whatever reason, they seem to prefer a curly leg trailer on it. Now, a lot of the newer jig guys, a lot of the younger generation of anglers, I see them using the curly tails a lot on a jig. That is a mistake, because I can tell you right now is, let's say for example, if you catch 100 bass on a jig with a curly tail and you catch 100 bass on a jig with a frog trailer, your frog trailer fish are going to weigh bigger overall than the curly tail. Frog will definitely catch you some bigger ones, but those are the primary ones I use. And occasionally I will still use the pork frog. Pork frog for me, one of my favorite situations with the pork frog is I'm fishing really dirty water, like dirty, especially dirty warm water. I do pretty good on a frog with that, so I still do use that. Now the jig sizes, a little bit about the jigs here, is on my Blaukat Throwback jigs. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but these are hand-tied living rubber skirts on here. Now, living rubber skirt, they're hard to find anywhere, because the reason is the rubber's harder to get and it's labor intensive because you have to hand tie it with twine. And that's why my Blaukat Throwback jigs, they're the best jig on the market in my opinion, because they're hand tied living rubber. Most of the jigs that you have on companies are silicone skirts with a band on it, a collar. And that's done because they're cheaper. You know, you do have a few more color options with flake, but a lot of it is done because it's cheaper to manufacture. So definitely try some of my living rubber Blaukat Throwbacks. Again, that link will be in the description. There's 3 different sizes I use. 90% of the time is a 3/8, a half, and a 5/8. Now, depending upon a lot of different things is depending upon the size I choose. Again, a lot of it is what the fish prefer day in and day out, but you have to start somewhere. And normally the cleaner, the warmer the water, the heavier the jig that I'm using, and the dirtier, the colder the water, the lighter jig I'm using. So in other words, let's say for example, if the water is 50 degrees and the water visibility is 10 inches, I'm gonna be using a 3/8 ounce a lot of times. If the water temperature is 80 degrees and the water visibility is 4 foot, I'm gonna be using a 5/8, faster fall. Overall, probably ½ ounce is my favorite. That's a good sort of in-between size. But again, you know, when you're picking your jig size, there's a couple different factors. You wanna try to be efficient as you can. You wanna try to cover as much water efficiently, and you want to have the rate of fall correctly, because the rate of fall on jig fishing makes a huge difference in generating a strike. And there's several different things that determine rate of fall. Number one, the density of the skirt, how many skirt strands are in there. Obviously the weight of the head, how heavy a line you're using. If you're flipping 25-pound fluorocarbon, it's gonna fall slower than 10-pound fluorocarbon. And obviously the trailer size, if it's a curly tail trailer or straight tail. So all that's going to affect your fall rate, and along with the type of cover you're fishing. Obviously, the thicker the cover, probably the heavier jig, or the windier the day, the heavier jig. All that type of stuff, there's a lot of variables involved with it. So given that, let me show you some of my favorite color combinations here. Okay, first of all, let's go with black and chartreuse. Black and chartreuse is one of my favorite colors for big fish. There's 2 different trailers I use on this as far as color. The first one is some type of a black trailer, either black and blue, black and red, whatever. This is going to be my dirty water color. This is gonna be, you know, when that water visibility is under about 1 foot, I'm gonna be using, you know, the black and chartreuse with the black trailer. If the water visibility is a little bit cleaner, sometimes I'll put the blue trailer on a black and chartreuse jig. This is a big fish color, guys. I catch a lot of big ones on that. Another thing about that is when you're putting your chunk trailers on, guys, this is the correct way to rig them like this. I see a lot of guys putting them on upside down. You don't want to do that. You want to rig it where the fat side is down. You get better action out of it. But black and blue and solid black, blue and solid black is with my black and chartreuse jig. Now my black and blue jig, a couple different variations on it. My favorite with a black and blue jig, and this is for water visibility of under 2 foot most of the time, is the black and blue with the blue chunk on it. This is probably the color I've caught more good fish on than any other jig color out there. That's a really good color. And the same thing with the black trailer on it. You know, I'll match the black trailer with the black and blue jig, and that's especially good in dirty water in the summer. And occasionally I will put a green pumpkin trailer on the back of a black and blue jig. And this is a really good color if you're fishing around grass. So if you're fishing around like in Florida or somewhere like that, or hydrilla and milfoil and a TVA lake, especially if the water's a little bit cleaner, like that 2.5 foot zone, the green's gonna work really good on that. But that black and blue, you can't go wrong with it. Solid brown is another good color, guys. I catch a lot of fish on a solid brown. I usually pair all the time. I'll pair the solid brown up. Trim a little. Another thing, guys, you want to trim some of that skirt back on there. A lot of times we leave the skirt lengths longer on my throwback jigs on purpose, so you can trim them to your liking. But this is my clear water color here. If I'm fishing a jig and water visibility of over 3 foot, it's usually this combo, brown with the green trailer on it like that. Another deal that I catch some fish on, this is just different variations I use, is in the fall time of the year, a lot of times a brown jig with a blue chunk on it. I catch a lot of fish. This is one right here. This is the brown and orange, guys. A lot of people consider brown and orange like a pre-spawn color, and it is good in the pre-spawn. But one thing I found out about brown and orange is it works good anytime the water temperature is in the 50s. So if water temperature is in the 50s in March, brown and orange is good. If it's in the 50s in November, brown and orange is good. And with my brown and orange, I'm usually always pairing it up, you know, with the green pumpkin again. The green pumpkin really has a nice look to the brown and chartreuse, or brown and the orange there. Catch a lot of fish on that. And anytime that I'm using a green pumpkin or a watermelon, a lot of times I'm dyeing the tail either orange or chartreuse, sometimes blue. But one of my favorites is like taking this brown and orange and either dyeing the tail a little bit chartreuse or even orange on it. So you definitely want to have a good selection of dye in your selection as far as, you know, dyeing trailers and everything. Now this is one color we offer here that's become one of my favorites for the summertime. This is a green with chartreuse, guys. I have caught a bunch of fish on this color the last 2 years if I have dirty water and warm water. And usually I'm always pairing it up with the green pumpkin trailer. Now, you wouldn't think that green pumpkin is good in muddy water, but guys, the chartreuse in there with the green pumpkin, and I always dye it chartreuse, that's become one of my favorite dirty water colors, especially for when that water temperature is over, you know, 75 degrees or so. And then of course, you know, the curl trailer or the curly tail trailer on there, usually like on the speed crawl, I'm going to be cutting a little bit of it off on the end there. This is going to be, like I said, a lot of times in a little bit cleaner water when I want the visual strikes, or if I got grass around, I'm going to be putting this curl tail on there like that, fish it like that. And another good thing about this, guys, is you can take my jig, my throwback jig, and you put a curl tail on it, and it immediately turns into a swim jig. This is a perfect swim jig setup with the curly tail on it. So if I want to go to a swim jig or flipping, like that's one of the good benefits about using the curly tail trailer, is like you can pitch it and flip it into a lay down tree on one cast, let it go to the bottom. Next cast, you can take it with the flapping legs, pitch it up there in that lay down tree and reel it just under the surface like a swim jig and catch them. So the curly tail's a really good you know, option on that as far as versatility. And one final thing, guys, is jig fishing is always going to be more productive if you use scent. You guys heard me talking about it. I use the Baitpop, guys. I just take it. It's got real fish in it, real amino acids. I just take some and I put it right on the trailer. Got a lot of different colors and, you know, flavors to it. And the reason I always use scent on a jig is these fish, when that jig's on the bottom like this, As soon as that jig hits the bottom, those fish will swim down, they'll look at it, they'll study it, they'll get their nose close. And if you got scent on it, like that Baitpop, you're 100 times more apt to get a bite than if you have just a chunk of plastic with no scent. So that Baitpop link will be in my description of this video too, if you guys would like to order a tube. So anyway, guys, that's just a quick run through some of my favorite jig tips, just in a real quick format. What I just told you there, one of the things you got to realize, that's accumulation of 40 years of jig fishing. What I just told you there, just sort of in a little capsule. So I've got a lot of other jig information. You can go to my playlist and the videos and play some of my jig videos, but hope it helps you guys catch some quality fish, and we'll talk later.